All right, welcoming you guys to Jujutsu Kaisen, chapter 258. I'll keep this video pretty short because I don't have too many thoughts about it. Overall, pretty solid chapter, but not a lot actually goes down. So we pick up where we left off last time. The narrator's telling us that Yuji has just landed 7 black flashes on Sukuna. Technically, as you guys noted last chapter, if you go back and you count all the previous ones. But yeah, 8 total black flashes have been landed on Sukuna, so this man does not exactly have his full RCT back. Regardless though, at the start of the chapter, he is able to RCT his hands back at the very least. So yeah, it looks like Sukuna is now finally starting to take this fight seriously, because one of the first things he does is he activates his domain expansion, Malevolent Shriner, Malevolent Kitchen, whichever one you want to go with, and goddamn, does it look insane this time around. Yeah, he does an open domain, he's up in the air, I don't know how to describe it, but his domain is taking the weird form of what seems to be this Junji Ito amalgamation, right? You have hair coming out of the side, a giant eyeball in the middle, hands that are pretty much lifting Sukuna in the air. Yeah, it's pretty crazy looking. And since his domain is here, he starts letting the slashes fly, which is really smart. The slashes are indiscriminate. If I had to describe it, the best way to do that would be to call it a sword tornado, right? You see buildings being cut, you see Yuji, Maki, Choso, Ino, they're all getting cut up on the sides, and you know what? They're tanking these blows kind of well. Of course, the narrator does come in, and they're like, hey, Sukuna, he's been through a lot. Sukuna's a little bit tired, guys. His curse energy isn't exactly 1000% right now. So, of course, these slashes are not going to be that insane. It's still doing damage, but it's not maximum output by any means. But even with that being the case, it doesn't change the fact that the sorcerer's tanking Sukuna's domain expansion looks really badass, right? I mean, we can all come together and say that. I mean, Yuji's just over here, like this, like taking all the cuts. Oh man, it's great. I think this is like maybe the 13th panel we've had in the series where Yuji, is taking a bunch of cuts from Sukuna, but it never gets old. It never fails to give off that MC is gonna kill you vibe, you know what I mean? But yeah, we do get a lot of flashbacks in this chapter that kind of detail how Yuji was able to grow throughout that month and how he got stronger in the process. We learn how he got RCT. We even learn how RCT kind of works in most cases. Shoko kind of gave us a small hint as to what her curse technique might be, but I'm not really too sure. She's like, yeah, by the way, when you do RCT, you really just turn your cursed energy into blood. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Yuta didn't know that. Hikari didn't know that. So yeah, Choso and Yuji kind of come together, and Choso's like, hey, if you eat our siblings, you might just end up with RCT because they all have blood manipulation. And we don't exactly, correct me if I'm wrong, these are the spoilers, of course, so I mean, I don't have like the full picture. But Yuji doesn't say whether or not he wants to go through with it, but considering the fact that Yuji now has RCT and blood manipulation, I'm pretty sure he went through with it. So yeah, that pretty much explains how he was able to get RCT in a month. And now, another new technique that he whips out in this chapter is also explained because Yuji is now a user of Simple Domain. So, I don't know why I did it like that. But yeah, a key factor as to why Yuji is able to survive Sukuna's sword tornado is because he does utilize Simple Domain, and he kind of it's hard to explain what Simple Domain actually does. In some cases it mitigates domain expansions. In some cases, if it can't, it simply slows things down. It nerfs some of the damage. Whenever I hear somebody explain it, it kind of just reminds me of a barrier out of old school Final Fantasy, and that's pretty much what it is, right? But yeah, Yuji activates a Simple Domain, and the reason why he's able to do this is because he soul swapped with Kusakabe, which is something we saw during the month break. That was one of the few scenes that we actually got a peep at a long time ago. And yeah, it turns out the reason why they did that is because once you soul swap with somebody, part of their curse technique or part of their skill set gets ingrained in your body. That is why Yuji most likely has cleave and dismantles. Of course, there are a lot of other reasons why he has that as well, but that is something that Gojo even hinted at back in chapter 12. When Gojo first took Yuji on as a student, he said, hey, since Sukuna is inside of you, you might end up with some of his curse techniques. So the concept of soul swapping to level yourself up has been existent throughout the series, so it's really cool to see them utilize it now. I would say that Wee only being able to use it twice in a month is Gege nerfing him too, right? Because if Wee could do this multiple times in this month, oh man, Yuji would be crazy. Well, actually, not even Yuji, man. If Wee could do this every day, oh boy. Every single sorcerer would get body swap, man. It would be like Freaky Friday up in here. Yeah, Yuji soul swap with Kusakabe. He learned Simple Domain, and now forgive me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think we learn who the other person that swaps their soul with Yuji. So there is room for Gege to expand his moveset even further in the future of this fight, right? Oh, simple domains explained, RCTs explained. Maybe he'll have a third ability that we don't quite know of yet. But hey, I do think there is room for new abilities that are besides that, because at the end of this chapter, Sukuna reminds us, after 100 chapters, that Fuga is actually a thing. So yeah, he gets pretty pissed. By the end of this, you can actually see Sukuna's facial expression. It has very much changed throughout these fights. You know, at this point, he's like, I gotta put these guys down. So yeah, Sukuna's whipping out Fuga, and he takes aim at Yuji. And dude, next chapter, I wouldn't be super shocked if Yuji whips one out right back at him. Because like I said earlier, man, the seeds have been sown for a while. If Sukuna can do it, then Yuji can too. Of course, based off of what we saw last chapter, even though Yuji will be able to replicate Sukuna's moves more or less, it is going to be modernified, if that's the right way to put it. But yeah, Yuji's variation of Sukuna's abilities will be a little bit different simply because of the era differential. So maybe instead of Fuga, Yuji has Stovetop. I don't really know what else to call this ability. Maybe it's just a fire arrow. Maybe it's a Hadouken, a Kamehameha. You know, like this fire ability could take many different forms. And I am curious to see what Yuji's iteration of that is. Because last chapter, we saw that Sukuna, obviously we've seen him throughout the series, whenever he throws slashes, it's literally just like a wind slash. But when Yuji does it, there's like a little scissor emoji running around what he wants to cut. So I'm expecting Yuji to pull out a little bit of goofiness against Sukuna. And honestly, I think that would be pretty dang hype. One last thing that I want to talk about that I thought was kind of cool is the fact that Yuji gets his leg cut off, you know, in the midst of the slash tornado. But as fast as he lost his foot, he got it back too, right? Like, I saw his foot fly off into the distance, and I was like, oh, dang, you know, Yuji's foot's gone. And then you go to the very next panel, and then his foot's there again. You know, like, the guy's a master of RCT. And the craziest part is that he doesn't really pay it much mind because he's just so locked in. I mean, even when he's getting cut throughout this chapter, the guy's just like, you know what I mean? Damn, dude, I'd be kind of scared, man. I don't blame Sukuna. Yeah, I don't blame Sukuna for being upset, dude. Like the one guy you hate is locked in, and he's kind of beating you down. And you know what? It looks like Sukuna is responding in kind. It looks like he truly is just starting to focus only on Yuji. And I think that's going to be a mistake in the future, right? Because Maki is still here. Choso is still here. Ino is still here. I don't really know what Ino can do anymore. I mean, it really does feel like Ino played all of his cards out there, but I don't know. Maybe he'll whip out more auspicious beasts. I'm not exactly too sure. And then, of course, we still don't know how Shoko's infirmary room is looking right now, right? What combatants are back up and ready to fight? Where's Yuta? How's Hikari doing, right? Like, there's so many questions here, and I am excited to see what Gege is going to be cooking up next chapter. But yeah, hey, thank you guys so much for joining me on this little JJK adventure. Let me know what you thought about this chapter down below. Obviously, I'm pretty easy to please, so I really enjoyed it. But if you have any different thoughts, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll catch you guys later. Signing out.